Hey, what's going on? It's October the 31st, 2018, and it is Halloween. About this time last year, I got news of my brother's death. He died this time last year, um, October 31st, 2017, after dealing with a lengthy illness. And after a period of time, he just decided to give up the ghost. And I got news of it from a very close relative, and I have to admit I was taken back a little bit. I was My first reaction was not to believe it. I was in disbelief. Uh, but then over the course of several events, having to go down to Galveston, um, having to go to the funeral home, and actually seeing him laying in a casket, it kind of started to set in, and I began to grieve. But even after the funeral and everything like that, and I came back home, I still had that notion of disbelief. Could this really have happened? It was like I was in some kind of bizarre dream. Um, and I thought, it's kind of interesting. Halloween is the celebrated Day of the Dead in some cultures. Very ironic that my brother passed away on that particular day. And I recall when I got the news last year on Halloween, I recall being pretty down in the dumps and not wanting to hear any kind of festive activities like the little kids trick or treating and being happy and merry and knocking on the door. I wasn't feeling it. And interestingly enough, a storm came and it rained and it thundered and there were no trick or treaters in the neighborhood. So I got what I wanted. Another interesting thing is that over the course of the year, I kept having dreams, and I'm still having dreams about my brother. And the dreams are all along the line of he's still alive and he's well, and we are still hanging out and doing what we normally do when we visit each other. So it was kind of weird because in the dreams, my happiness level would be at its peak, and then I'd wake up the next morning, whether I just wake up or the alarm clock jars me out of my sleep because I got to go to work the next morning. I'd wake up and I realized that it was just a dream. And I'd start feeling these little inklings of sadness. Um, it even had me thinking, was his very existence? I mean, these dreams had me thinking, did my brother really exist? Was his existence, our past history, was that all a dream? And it couldn't have been because his sons are here, they're alive and well, and they're thriving, and they're doing their thing. They're living life as he would have wanted them to. And I know he would be very proud of that and happy about that. So, over the course of the year, I believe these dreams were a product of me wanting to hold on to my brother's life in this earthly realm. So, I was getting these dreams that he was still here, but then I get snapped back into reality. Reality is trying to tell me, hey, wake up. It's time to move on. And I believe I finally got the hint because I decided to move on in a sense that I decided to stop grieving. I'm tired of grieving. I'm tired of being sad. So I made that decision. I'm going to stop grieving. So I figure the best thing to do is to take some kind of action. And I figure if I take the action, then the emotion will follow. The emotions will tag along after the thoughts and after the action. So what did I do? Decided to do the opposite of what I did last year. So I went after work to the store, bought some candy, the good kind, the chocolates, the Snickers, and that kind of stuff that I know kids like. And I filled up this plastic jack o' lantern with all these candies, and I decided to hand out candy. To do the opposite of what I did. I mean, if I'm gonna stop grieving, if I'm going to make a conscious decision to stop grieving, I should do the opposite of what I did and not be cooped up in the house. I should go outside and sit on the porch and hand out candy. And here's something also kind of interesting about that. As I was leaving work, headed to the store, um, it was very overcast, very dark. I mean, it still technically should have been daylight, but it was overcast. There was a tornado warning in the area. A storm was brewing. And then before I got to the store where I was going to go buy the candy, uh, the rain started coming down. The claps of thunder and the whole 9 yards. And so I kind of second guessed it. I'm like, maybe this is probably going to end up like last year. Um, it started storming. The rain started coming down pretty good. So maybe I should just head on home. But another thought came to my head in the form of that still small voice and said, "Go in there and get the candy." And that's what I did. So I bought this candy, some the good treats, Snickers, the Twixes and whatnot, the miniature candies. And I got that jack o' lantern, bought that plastic orange pumpkin, and I went home. And as I drove up in the neighborhood, it's still raining and whatnot. I didn't see anybody. Um, but as I pulled up into my car pad, my driveway, I started hearing voices, out and about the neighborhood saying trick or treat. And I'm like, wow, really? I mean, they're actually out here in this weather. So, I opened the bags of candy, poured them in a jack o' lantern, took a chair out on the front porch, and I waited. And sure enough, here they come. They came, and they had their little costumes on, some pretty good ones too. They had umbrellas and whatnot, and they came. And I ended up giving out all the candy. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it's because I made a decision. I exercised a measure of faith. I listened to that still small voice that said, "Go ahead and get the candy anyway." And God made it happen. I took action. I took that first step to go against this grieving heart that I have. And grief will carry you away if you let it. At some point, you have to say to yourself, okay, enough's enough. It's time to move on. And so that's what I did. And it's interesting, during the course of that storm, God made it happen. Those kids came, and, kids have a interesting way. They have their little personalities and whatnot, and they're non-judgmental. And you know, kids are loving little human beings, unlike adults. And that positive energy was hitting me, man. It was hitting me, and God made it happen. So listen to that still small voice. Listen to that still small voice. and God will make it happen. Thank you. God bless all of y'all. Happy Halloween.